And a warm welcome to our live question and answer session for new students interested in initial teacher education degrees. So my name is Jennifer Farrer. I'm a senior lecturer and the Director of Initial Teacher Education at the School of Education here at the University of Glasgow. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to this live session. As you can see, the sun is shining especially for us. Now, this session will include a quick introduction to the School of Education, an overview of a couple of our initial teacher education programmes, and some answers to some frequently asked questions. And I'm delighted to say that I am joined today by some current students and alumni from our programmes who are going to talk a little bit about their experiences a bit later on. We will also be happy to answer any questions at the end about anything that we might not have covered, and you can write your questions in the comments. So please do that once we've had our discussion. Before we start, if you have any more general questions about studying at the University of Glasgow and your next steps, please check out the undergraduate offer holders page. For any questions specific to your offer and your personal situation, please use the admissions inquiry form to get the best and most efficient answer there. If you have more general inquiries about undergraduate study, please visit our webpage for information on applying, accommodation, student life, and so on. And all the links to these things will be posted in the comments. So before I bring in our panellists and our students and alumni to talk, I'll just give you a quick introduction to the School of Education and the University of Glasgow. A little bit about our programmes, thinking about our two undergraduate programmes with teaching qualifications. That's the MEd and the MD Tech Ed, and then we'll come on to having some discussion about what you might expect on these programmes and being a student. Now, as you'll maybe know, the University of Glasgow is an incredibly ancient institution. We were established in 1451, and our School of Education is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. So we're delighted to have that landmark milestone in our own history. The School of Education itself is a wonderful institution, and we're really hoping that you will come and join us there and take up your offer. We are the first in the UK and in the Times Good University Guide, and there are lots and lots. We're consistently highly placed in lots of other official rankings as well. We're really proud of the fact that our educational research aims to be world leading, and what we try to do is to address the most pressing issues of our time and make a real difference. By coming to the University of Glasgow and by taking up a place in one of our initial teacher education programmes, you will become part of that community, and by becoming a teacher with us, you'll also be saying yes to making a difference to children and young people's lives, to their families and our communities. And what we do within our programmes is we really draw on all of that world-leading research and bring it to bear in relation to the experiences that you have within the classroom. So we're here today, as I've already mentioned, to talk about two of our undergraduate programmes, the MD Tech Ed and the MEd. So the MD Tech Ed is a 5-year undergraduate programme that will prepare you for becoming a secondary teacher specialising in technological education. The MEd is a 5-year programme that is also, like MD Tech Ed, an integrated master's programme, which will prepare you for teaching in the primary classroom in Scotland. So we're going to, in a second, bring in all of our guests to talk to you a little bit about what you can expect in the programmes and to think about what you might want to do to prepare as you come in, and thinking about some of the, as we have our discussions, thinking about how these degrees work, the balance of working between school and university, that kind of thing. So I wonder if we can soon bring in our panelists to have a chat. Here they come. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you all.
Hi.
Great. Hi there. Hi. Now, I wonder if I can ask everybody to introduce themselves. So if I just go around, as everyone I can see on my screen, if I can come to you first, Lana.
Hi, I'm Lana. I am a second year, well, just finishing up second year on the MEd course.
Thank you so much, Lana. And Bethan.
Hello, I'm Bethan. I'm just finishing third year on the MEd programme.
Thanks, Bethan. And you've had a couple of big placements this year, haven't you?
I've had 2 5-weeks and a 9-week.
There we go. Thanks. So maybe we'll get some more information on placements a wee bit later on. And hi, Phoebe.
Hi, my name is Phoebe Matthews. So I did the MEd 5 course. and I'm currently a teacher in Renfrewshire Council.
So Phoebe, just to clarify, so you did the 5-year undergraduate programme, the MA-Duke programme,
Yeah.
You've done your probationary year, and you're
Yes.
now employed as a primary teacher.
Yes, correct.
What class are you working with at the moment?
I'm in primary 5 right now. So I think that might be my favourite, yeah.
I think you have to say that. I have to say
I know,
that.
it's so true.
And last but no means least, Afton. Hi, Afton.
Hi, I'm Afton. Like Phoebe, I've graduated from the MA-Duke course and completed my probation year. I'm also currently teaching at the moment, but in Inverclyde Council. And I also have a primary 5 class. So definitely the best age.
Oh my goodness, we've got a primary 5 bias going on here. That's lovely. Thanks so much. So it's great to have you here today. Thank you so much. So the first question I was going to ask you about is, Lana, you're at the beginning of your, well, not so much the beginning, you're moving through your degree. You've all made different decisions about where you're going to go. I'd like to just first of all ask, why did you choose the University of Glasgow to come to do your initial teacher of education? Lana, can I come to you for that question?
Yeah, so I remember looking through all the different courses for the different universities in Scotland when I was applying, choosing which one to apply to. There was 3 main things that made me choose Glasgow. So I quite liked the way that the course was set out. So I know in some different unis, when it comes to placement, they'll do serial days and then go into a block placement, whereas I liked that in Glasgow, you're just straight into a block placement. I think it's beneficial because you can get to know the class really well. So that definitely drew me to it. I also liked the fact that it was an integrated master's, so there's the choice to do 4 or 5 years, which is definitely unique to Glasgow. And then for me, I know this won't apply to everyone, but one of the main reasons I chose Glasgow over any other uni was to do the Catholic teaching certificate with it. I think we'll come onto that more later, but for me, I just thought that was useful to be able to do that incorporated in the course. I know if you can do it in other unis after you've already graduated, but I just thought it was really good that it's in the course in Glasgow.
Thanks so much, Lana. That's a really, really interesting comment. And I think just to maybe clarify for folks listening, Lana mentioned the serial days. So what that usually means is you might have a day or 2 dotted maybe throughout the semester where you go into a school and you do lots of observational work and maybe some small group work. And that can then lead up to perhaps a longer block of placement within a school. But at Glasgow, we put you in for longer blocks. And Lana, I think what you're saying was you quite like the fact that you were in for longer periods of time rather than days here or there. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then, yeah, absolutely. We have the integrated master's program, which I already mentioned, which means it's a 5-year program. You leave with a master's qualification, an integrated master's qualification. There is also the option to exit at the end of year 4 with your teaching qualification, but many of our students stay with us for the 5 years and leave with the MA-Duke. So yeah, that's really interesting. And absolutely, Lana, we're going to come back to the CTC as an integral part of the teaching qualification for those who choose to do that specific additional qualification there. But that's really useful. Thanks so much. So that gives us a nice idea about why you picked Glasgow. Does anybody else want to add in anything else about why you picked Glasgow?
I was the same. One of the big reasons for me was the integrated masters. That is just, I can't state enough how unique that is to Glasgow, and it was brilliant. That was the main reason that I accepted the offer to here as well. The other thing was the interview process. I know some other universities do their interview like at the end of first year or something like that. And the thing that I felt I really liked about Glasgow was that once you had your interview, that was you in, and you didn't have that sort of ambiguity about like what's going to happen after this year. I don't know if that's still the case. I know that was going back 6 years now, so it's quite a long time. Don't know if that's still the case, but I thought that was, once you've done your interview, that's you. I thought that was a really important part.
Thanks, Phoebe. And that's really good to know you found the interview process positive as well. And absolutely having that master's, because, we know from research that teaching is intellectual work, it's ethical work, it's such important place now upon the master's aspects of teaching. So it's really good to know how much that you valued and were attracted by that aspect. Thank you so much. So now we've already mentioned placement a little bit, and I think maybe people might be interested to know, so we're in an undergraduate degree, how much time is spent between university and placement, and maybe the relationship between the two. And it's very similar for both degrees, for MEdUC and MD Tech Ed, that you spend a specific amount of time in school and a specific amount of time in university, and the two bits are absolutely interconnected. Now, Bethan, I wonder if I could bring you in on that one, please, to tell us a wee bit about placement and your experience.
Yeah, sure. So I would say first year is heavily to do with uni, so you're not really on placement that much, and the reason for that is the focus of first year is to build up that curriculum knowledge, to build up that kind of teacher presence. So you'll be in uni for the first semester, which would be September to December, and then after that you have got 1 week in a primary school, or at least I did when I was in first year, and then you've got 2 weeks in a nursery. And I think it's really useful having the 2 weeks in a nursery because it kind of lets you see the education system before primary school. So if you're ever in a primary one, you kind of know their background knowledge. And then in second year, it's also quite heavily uni based, I would say. So you're in again for the first semester and you've got your assessments. I think it was most assessments were before Christmas and some afterwards. And then after Christmas, you've got 5-week placement. And that's obviously quite a big jump from first to second year. So that's quite good because it allows you to see how schools work for a longer period of time, I guess. And I think you can be in any year group for that. Which was quite good for my second year placement. I had primary 6, which was quite good to see how the upper stages work after being in a nursery. And then in third year, you're in uni until November, and there's one formative assessment. So that's, you're kind of just, it's not a heavily marked assessment. And then you've got 5 weeks in a lower ages placement, which is quite good. So I had primary 3 before Christmas. 2 weeks left of my 9-week placement, which is in a primary 7 class, which is quite good. And you've got your assignments, all my assignments were due 2 weeks before I started this placement. So it was quite a lot, but I'm glad that happens because now when placement's finished, I've got my professional development and then that's me done. So there's nothing really to worry about uni-wise on placement. And then I can't talk a lot about 4th and 5th year because I've obviously not been there yet. But 4th year, I know you're in uni for semester 1. So again, September to December. And then you've got a longer placement, which is 12 weeks. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can put your preference in for 4th year of what year you'd like to work in or year groups. And then 5th year is just uni and dissertation supervision.
Yeah, and certainly we can come on to, and we'll talk about the dissertations when we come on a wee bit further on through our discussion. And I know that maybe after, and Phoebe, you could talk about this a wee bit later on about some people begin to do some supply work or look for work or try to do a little bit of work as within their 5th year as well to keep your hand in. But yeah, absolutely. And so Bethan, you've got that 12-week year 4 block to look forward to next year. But I wonder whether I could ask you a little bit about this, the way that you, within your assignments, how have you drawn on your placement experiences within your assignments and the connections between them?
I think I've drawn massively on the placement experiences because a lot of the assignments do ask you about experience, or not specifically your experience, but they ask you stuff that it's helpful to have experience for. So for example, one of my assignments was asking me to draw on 2 lesson plans and about assessment strategies. So I think without having a longer extended placement, you're not going to have the knowledge of assessment strategies or teacher presence or curriculum knowledge. So I think it's massively important. And it's so important to have the different kind of ages as well. Like I've been in lower and upper and nursery. So you can, by the end of your degree, you do know, because you've worked in all ages for quite an extended period of time. So you do know what you kind of want to do after your degree, what year you'd like.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier that this idea of your teacher presence and working on that and thinking about that the whole way through. And for those who may be not familiar with that term, that really just means who you are, you know, how you position yourself, how you project yourself within the classroom, that the version of you that you have when you're in the classroom.
Yes, because it's hard to develop that on a shorter placement, because I feel like as soon as you get into your rhythm, you're leaving. So it's good to have like a 9-week placement to kind of get to know the children, get to know who you are as a teacher, who you'd like to present yourself as. So I find it really useful.
And you have to change that as you go up and down the school as well, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bethany, for that. That's really interesting. Now we've already had a little bit of this, and Alana, I might come back to you for this one, seeing as you were mentioning some assignments and things as well. How do you manage to keep on top? And we've got all these placements and coursework, and anybody else can contribute to this as well. But how do you manage to keep on top of all of the work?
So I'd say the second year placement's actually at a really good time of year, because you've just finished all your semester 1 coursework, but you've not quite started your semester 2 coursework, so you can really focus on placement. And I think in second year that is important, because as Bethan said, it is such a jump from 1 week to 5 weeks. But I do remember on the first year placement still having essays due kind of around the same time as placement. And I think the most important thing for staying on top of it is just managing your time and setting realistic targets. You can't get everything done at once, and the workload is a lot. But if you have a rough plan of what you want to do, I like to write everything down personally and make sure, because the to-do list is pretty much never ending. Well, it feels like that anyway. But it is manageable if you just keep on top of it. And also don't forget that you've got your class teacher and your tutors to support you too. You're not completely on your own. And although it is a stressful time, if you stay organised, it definitely helps to keep on top of everything.
That's good advice. Thanks, Lana. I wonder if I could call on our alumni for a second, just to see what their advice is on managing that balance of work and university, of placement and university, and maybe preparing for placement. Phoebe or Afton, would you like to jump in and tell us anything about that? Thanks, Afton.
No worries. Yeah, I think completely agree with everything that the other girls are saying. Probably one of the biggest things for me, and something I'm probably still working on as a teacher, making sure that you're trying to get ahead of the game and things are as organised as possible. Like, you just need to be as prepared and organised in advance as you can. It is difficult because obviously as you go through the course you'll understand that a massive part of teaching is being reflective and responding to what you see in front of you, but it's a huge help even just to do things at the time. Don't put it off and procrastinate, even though that's sometimes the more tempting thing to do. Do it at the time and make sure that everything is just as well prepared as it can be. That's probably the best advice I can give.
Thanks, Afton. And I'm presuming that's advice that, a strategy that you'll need to have in the classroom anyway when you're a fully qualified teacher.
100%. I mean, even things happen, like technology isn't reliable, plans can change, and that's something that you 100% need to get to grips with pretty early on in your career, I feel.
Even the weather can have an impact on your lesson, so you've got to be prepared for everything.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Be prepared for something. Here's some more advice.
Thanks for that. Now, before I move on, Phoebe, did you have anything you wanted to add there? Is everything?
Yeah, just echoing what the girls have already said, just staying as prepared as possible and staying organised. And like you said, it's good preparation for the job, keeping on top of things. And for me, this is just who I am as a person, but I like to set myself like fake deadlines, so if something's due on like the Wednesday or something, I will make sure it's sorted and ready to go for the Monday, just in case. And I just like to just set it a little bit before it's due. And I feel like that's actually helped and cut down on stress levels, because even if you are sort of leaving it a little bit to the last minute under a bit of pressure, you've given yourself that little bit of leeway anyway. And as you say, technology sometimes can be a disaster. So I find that just giving yourself that little bit of leeways and being really prepared, just even a couple of days beforehand has worked for me.
That's good advice. Thank you so much. Right. Okay. Now, we've already had a little bit, Lana, you mentioned it already, but I'm going to ask maybe come to Bethan about teaching within the Catholic sector. Would you maybe tell us a wee bit? That might be a question someone's got. They might have heard about the CTC. We've already mentioned it here. How does that work?
So I'm doing the Catholic teaching course at Glasgow. So I'll preface by saying that you don't need the Catholics qualification a lot of the time to work in a Catholic school, but it is preferred. So at Glasgow, it's an extra class and it's run throughout the course, so it's integrated in, which is one of the main reasons why I chose Glasgow, because as I think it was Lana that said it earlier, a lot of the time you will have to go and do an add-on if you want to teach in a Catholic school, just because if someone's going for a job who's got the qualification, then they will be favoured. I like the Catholic class. I think it's really good. So it's taken by a priest, and you go into all of your like Catholic knowledge in depth, which really prepares you for working in a Catholic school, which I really like, because I think it can kind of be, if you go to church, you will know about it, but it's a good refresher for if you're going to have to teach it. Your placements hopefully will be in Catholic schools. I've personally never been in a Catholic school for teaching. That's just how it's worked out for me. I've always been in non-denominational, but for your 4th year, you will be in a Catholic school, because you need to be assessed teaching a Catholic lesson, just to check that you're on track and you know what you're talking about and you know how to teach it. So it's really good to understand the pedagogies of that. And I think it's really good. It does really prepare you to teach in a Catholic school, even though I've never personally taught in a Catholic school. I feel like I could, which is always a good start for something that's being advertised on a course. But yeah, I think it's really helpful.
Thanks so much, Beth, and yeah, absolutely. You mean you'll have your school for 4th year will allow you to have that RE assessment, and it's great, I think, to have that broad experience and all the time be making those connections from your CTC course into the classroom. Is there anything else anybody else wants to add to that, Lana?
The only other thing I would say is in 1st and 2nd year, for your elective in semester 1, if you're doing the Catholic teaching certificate, you take theology. I think if you're not doing the Catholic teaching, you have the option to do theology, or what if, or what's the point. But yeah, just to add that in, that if you're doing the Catholic teaching, you do theology as your elective. That's actually very interesting as well.
That's a good point as well, because in 3rd year you'll do like the curriculum as a whole. So you've got all your curriculum subjects, and for when it comes to religion, you'll either do RME, which is religious moral education, or if you do the Catholic teaching certificate, you'll do RERC, which is religious education for Roman Catholics. So that's another kind of in-depth bit, which is really good.
And also within 3rd and 4th year, we do have electives that allow you to explore further aspects within RERC as well. So there's a thread all the way through the MA-Duke degree that allows specialisation, but there are other threads within the degree as well that allow you to pursue it. But that's a really super to highlight the CTC there. Thank you so very much. Now let's go from the CTC to 5th year, because we've alluded to this integrated masters aspect, and we're thinking about, well, what does a 5th year look like? So the 1st semester is largely taught. So you're doing a course where you're looking at big kind of issues within education and thinking a bit more in depth about aspects of different curricular areas. And then you'll be doing a research methods course. Effectively, you're thinking about preparing for your dissertation, and then you go on to dissertation supervision and the writing of your dissertation. So I wonder if I can bring can you hear me?
Yes, you're back.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm back. Thank goodness. Did you hear my question, which was about 5th year?
No, we didn't.
Okay, thank you. I'll go again. So I was talking a little bit about the 5th year dissertation and 5th year in general. So my question was just really for you to begin to maybe tell us about how you found writing the dissertation, maybe telling us what you looked at, and maybe how that process of having that really big intellectual challenge in your 5th year, and how that's maybe helped you develop a specialism yourselves. So Afton, can I bring you in first, and then I'll come to you, Phoebe?
So I personally, I loved doing the dissertation. I think that's maybe something I didn't think I would say when I was starting it. I was maybe a little bit apprehensive, as it is a really big piece of work, 15,000 words. It's a huge amount of effort, but I loved every part of it. Our experience was different, as when we were doing our masters and actually into 4th year as well. Obviously, COVID was a big part. of life. So I guess it kind of changed the interaction we had. But I tried to make sure for my 5th year dissertation to try and choose something different to what I'd looked at in the past. So you do kind of smaller pieces of work in 4th year for like a practitioner inquiry. So I made sure to try and choose something slightly different, just to give myself another kind of string to my bow, as it were. I tried to choose something that interests me. So my dissertation was on how can the Scottish literacy curriculum be changed to further embed critical literacy. So that's something that has always interested me, but particularly something that I wanted to look at in more detail. Since then, I have applied my findings. So again, because of COVID, it was a desk-based research. We couldn't go out into schools to do our action research. So I've taken that forward in my probation year, and now beyond that, to try and introduce my findings and stay up to date with new research, and I put my findings into practice. Also, I guess going back to what was said before, you do have the chance in 5th year to go out into schools. You can add on to supply lists, depending on which ones are open. I was lucky enough to find myself with a COVID recovery position. So I was out in Renfrewshire Council completing supply work that year. Again, it's something that you could do. Obviously now the COVID restrictions are different. You could go out into schools, use those supply days to actually complete action research, and again, that's a whole different experience for your research that you might not have in the early years of uni.
I absolutely love that, Afton, that the fact that you followed an interest and a passion all the way through, you picked up through your learning and have developed that into a dissertation that you're now applying within your teaching. That's really, really inspiring, and just smashing to hear. So thank you so much for sharing that. Phoebe, what was your dissertation about, and how did you find it?
So yeah, I enjoyed writing it as well, and I found it so supportive. I thought it would be quite a daunting experience, like you say, 15,000 words, that's so much. Like, how am I going to be able to manage that? But there's someone there supporting you every single chapter, so there's nothing that gets sent away that hasn't, already been discussed with your tutor. You work so closely with them, and it's a very, very supportive experience. And it's just interesting to have that time with someone who's so knowledgeable and obviously knows their field so well, and bouncing ideas off them and them coming back with things you've never even thought of. So I actually, surprisingly really enjoyed it as well. But the reason I picked my topics was based on things that I actually wasn't confident in. So things that had maybe been picked up in an observation or something like that I needed to work on, rather than something that I was already pretty confident in. I decided to pick something that I wasn't confident with at all. So my 5th year dissertation was on maths anxiety in teachers. So, I was on placement with a woman who used to be an engineer, and she was so competent in maths, and it was so inspirational. And I'm really not at all. Even yesterday, someone asked me to put the class into groups of 6, and I had 31, and I was like, I can't do that. So I actually took that and used that, and I thought, teachers would project their maths anxiety onto their students, but I actually found the opposite, that a lot of teachers with that anxiety around maths were extremely empathetic and could understand, where if somebody in your class wasn't understanding the concepts, you could empathize with them completely and say, it's all right, we'll think of a different strategy. And so actually I got the opposite of what I thought I was going to find. So no, it was such an interesting experience. I loved it.
That's, again, a really inspirational story. I love the fact that you picked something that was a challenge for you, and then again have used that to shape and inform your practice. So that's really good. And Lana and Bethan, I hope that fills you with confidence about what you might do when you get to that stage as well. That's really great. Thank you so much. So we've already heard then about the opportunities within the degree programme in terms of the CTC, the dissertation, and that development of expertise. But I wonder, are there other opportunities that you took part in? Phoebe, I might come back to you for this one. What else did you do that helped to develop you or give you other opportunities within the school?
So there's so many opportunities in Glasgow that are open to you, and I actually wish I had gone back and experienced them a little bit more. I feel like it's a bit wasted on me at the time. If I had, had known what amazing opportunities they were, I definitely would have grabbed them with both hands looking back. But for example, like some of the ones I did do, and this is by no means like comprehensive, but I was lucky enough to go to Spain with Fran for 10 days. I took modern languages as my elective. And he took us over to Malaga and Granada, and we got to go into schools and experience that, and we were reading books with them, and we also did an intensive Spanish language course over there. So that's something that's really sparked a passion in me. So I actually still speaking Spanish to this day. I teach it in class as my +1 language, and every Thursday I go to conversational Spanish class, and that's purely based off of what we did at uni, and it was brilliant. So coming back to that, I actually also, and I don't know if this is still the case, but in first and second year anyway, a lot of the short courses were discounted for first and second year students to sort of get them interested in that. And I took a Spanish short course. So, it was a discount of like hundreds of pounds. And so I don't know if that's still the case, but definitely keep your eyes peeled for the different short courses that are available there. I also joined the Children's Literature Book Club, and we took part in that in fifth year. So that was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed that. And I feel like that is probably with the biggest impact on my teaching practice, because, we're trying to develop teachers as readers and promote reading for pleasure in the class, which can sometimes be a bit of a struggle, as particularly some people like hesitant readers. And in that, I read so many graphic novels, and which is fantastic because I'm then able to recommend books to the kids and get involved. And have you read this book? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's so funny. You're like, oh, we'll need to see if we can source like the second one. And yeah, so it's a real connection there, that not just for reading, but like for relationships as well. I'm like, oh no, you read that, and we kind of connect over that. So that was brilliant. Other things as well, there's so many societies that you could join. So I joined the netball club, and actually I found it quite daunting, just being from like a small town, and where we were just playing like cluster leagues and stuff, and going up against these like inner city kids who were so competitive, which is brilliant, if that's what you're after. But for me, I was like, oh my goodness. But there's loads of like levels to that as well. You could just play like recreationally, but if you want that competition, it's totally there. But there's also so many different things like to just try out. So I think I went to like boxing, skiing, baking, like there's just anything you could ask. They've got it. And yeah, there's just so many different things you could do. And I would just say totally like just grab those opportunities as much as possible.
Thanks, Phoebe. That is so exciting. I mean, obviously, the children's literature is my personal bias, and we obviously delighted that you mentioned that. But you mentioned Fran. Now that's Dr. Francisco Valdera Gil, who is one of our senior lecturers in modern language, but he also oversees a lot of our mobilities in our initial teacher education program. So Fran is all about trying to give our student teachers experiences of living and working and experiencing education abroad. So that was a part of that. So thanks for mentioning that, Phoebe. Now, Lana and Bethan, am I right that you're involved as peer mentors with kit bags?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to tell us a bit about that? Because that's quite a new initiative. I don't know if Phoebe and Afton will have heard of this, but this is something that we're now doing within the School of Education. Would you maybe be able to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so kit bag is it's like you get a little bag, and it's got little cards, animal cards, feeling cards that put wee colours on them. And it's basically, the essence of it is to help children articulate how they're feeling without actually kind of using adult words, I guess. But we also use it for our peers in the School of Education. So we've got a little kit bag room, and it's Christine McKee who runs it. So she's a great mentor. And yeah, it's like a little space for our peers to come if they're wanting any advice, or if they're struggling, just want a vent really. But it's really good. I've used it in my primary 3 placement, and it was really good. It was received very well because the kids can point to a colour that they're feeling, and sometimes it's interesting because I might associate yellow with happy, but they might associate yellow with like anxious or something. So it was really good to see the differences in that. And they get little animal cards, so it may have like a crocodile with confidence or something. So they can keep one, and then if they get 2, they can give one to a friend that they think might need courage or happiness. So it's really good. I really enjoy being a part of Kitbag.
Yeah, thank you so much for that explanation, Bethan. And it's all about, isn't it, this idea that you're offering support to the children in the classroom, but we're building a little community of peer support where you're working with other student teachers. And Lana, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would say it's something that's I've not actually done much with it yet. The second year's only got involved with it quite recently. But I'm looking forward. We're doing a meeting quite in the next few weeks actually to see how we can take it further forward. But I think it just shows how you can find something that you're really interested in that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of from the course content. So in one of the modules, Education and Practice 2B, you learn a lot about trauma and emotions and how to manage them. And that was what led me to get involved in Kitbag, was an interest was sparked in how to help children talk about their emotions and manage them in a healthy way. So I'd say it's a nice link between theory and practice.
Oh, that's a lovely way of putting it. Thanks, Lana. And I think, again, it's that sense of within the school, we're trying to create support. So we also have a place to be counsellor based with a practitioner and specialist based within the School of Education, who's there primarily to support our student teachers when they are out on placement and within their studies in general. We also have this peer support network, as well as a really strong advisory team as well. So, we do take our student support really seriously, as well as aspects to do with employability. And as Phoebe mentioned, you have the entire university's resource there for you to access. So thinking about this kind of, I mentioned employability a second ago, and I wonder if I could just now flip. We're going from pillar to post here, but we're now moving, I think, to post university. I wonder if you could tell us a wee bit about your teacher journey after leaving university. Afton, can I ask you that, please?
Yeah, of course. So I guess it depends on when you actually choose to leave the course. I think quite a large proportion of our year stayed on to do the masters, which is fantastic. Again, I think both Phoebe and I couldn't recommend it highly enough. It's definitely helped. So at the end of 4th year, you would apply to start your probation year, and that involves choosing 5 local authority areas in Scotland that you would consider doing your probation year in. So you rank them 1 to 5, with 1 being your top choice, and then all the way down to 5. If you decide to stay on for your 5th year, then that's deferred, and you'll need to put in your options again. So that was the case for me. So turned out that I got my second choice, which was Inverclyde Council. I'm really lucky where I stay. I'm really close to a lot of local authority areas. Then after that, you're kind of put in touch with the NQT coordinator for your area. I again can't speak highly enough of the lady in charge of Inverclyde NQT. She was a great support to us last year. And then you, I guess, start to transition into the place of work. You find out your school. Inverclyde's very traditional. They still do, instead of just telling you your school, they do a big grand reveal in an envelope, which makes it super exciting. And then you can start to liaise with your school and have your own wee classroom, which is just such a unique experience. I think when you have that for the first time, it's such a special memory. Then I know my probation year last year was fantastic. I cannot thank my school enough. It was a fantastic experience. Learned lots. Again, teaching such a lifelong learning career. You learn so much at university, but actually your perspective completely shifts when you're in the classroom. It's just a completely different skill set. Then after that, at the end of your probation year, depending on where you are, I know Inverclyde was great at supporting us through mock interviews and that transition to applying for jobs after your probation year. all of those applications go through My Job Scotland, and I know my mentor was very supportive at helping me with that. And then it's kind of up to you where you choose to go. So I've stuck with Inverclyde and Renfrewshire as they're closer to me, but of course there's chances to go further afield in Scotland, and then of course the world. So it's
Absolutely.
lots of potential.
Thanks, Afton. And I think just to explain a little bit, that once you finish your undergraduate or your initial teacher your degree, everybody who has completed that successfully gets a 1-year funded place, your probationary year from Scottish Government, and that's within a different local authority. So that process that Afton explained about applying to 5 different places, that's all done, administered by local authorities and the General Teaching Council for Scotland. And then, of course, you go out into the stage where you both are now, where you're both working within different contexts. So yeah, there's a journey that extends beyond that. Then, of course, you can continue, as you said, Afton, continue to learn, to engage, and even come back and do another master's at the University of Glasgow or doctoral work. You never know. Okay, now I'm really mindful of time. The time is absolutely whizzed in. I wonder if, Phoebe, I could just come to you. You've already mentioned some of the things you love to do. What was your favourite thing about studying at Glasgow?
So my favourite thing about studying at Glasgow was definitely the way that it doesn't just teach you, how to teach, but it actually teaches you like how to think critically and how to look at the research and actually inform your own decisions. And it's so different in that way. My favorite thing about it particularly was sociology that we did in first and second year. Again, I'm not sure if it's the same, but we did those different electives. And I loved that. I just found that so fascinating, and it really taught me about all the various injustices and just things that you were totally blind to before I did that. And it taught me so much about social justice and things like that. And there are times I actually felt more like a civil rights activist than a teacher. But actually, like as a teacher, there's been a lot of times I've felt more like a social worker or, like a, I don't know, family liaison, like you get so involved. And I think that's the great thing about, the city of Glasgow as well, is that it does have its own challenges as well. But the things that like Glasgow University teaches you, you're able to then put that into practice as well. You're actually seeing it, you're at the forefront of it. And I feel like I feel like Glasgow University really put a bit of a fire in my belly, not just about being a teacher and teaching the 6 times table, but actually like looking after them and being that like corporate parent as well, and just having that like passion for it and making the difference, world changers. And it really is, it's unique in that way, definitely. So yeah.
Thank you, Phoebe. That's it. Oh, I think I'm back again now.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to say thank you for that, Phoebe. That was really, really interesting. And in terms of, I love the idea of you having that fire in your belly from teaching and from thinking about how sociology can be applied within the classroom context, those issues of social justice, and really thinking about that in relation to your classroom practice. So thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. Now, I think we're almost out of time. Does anybody else want to mention anything just in the closing seconds about what was their favourite thing about studying at Glasgow? We're all okay.
Yeah.
I guess on the flip side to Phoebe's comment, I guess you're lucky in Glasgow that there's so many things to do as well. Like we're so lucky, especially the School of Education, so close to Kelvin Grove Park. Like I know I enjoyed in between lectures going for a wee wander as well. So not just, I guess, academic wise, but social wise, as Phoebe's touched on, so many opportunities that again would encourage you to take the most of and enjoy
nightlife.
And the nightlife. Thank you. Oh, well, listen, thank you so much for all of that. And I think that it's just for us now just to really say thank you all for today, and for coming along and for sharing your experiences. For everybody listening, please do follow up on those links in within the chat and on the university website, and please do get in touch with us if you have any further questions. We really do hope that you will take up your offer and say yes to making a difference and say yes to coming to Glasgow. So thank you very much, everybody.